Lesson 31. Identify parallel and perpendicular lines. Study the example identifying parallel and perpendicular lines and segments. Then solve problems 1 through 6. Before we look at the example, I wanted to look at the vocabulary. So we've got parallel lines and perpendicular lines. Parallel lines are two lines that are always the same distance apart and will never cross. And here's an example of those. Perpendicular lines are two lines that cross at a 90-degree angle, and here's an example of those. A 90-degree angle is like this meeting point here, where it looks like a perfect straight corner. Or we also call that a right angle. The example says Colby drew parallel and perpendicular lines to place bases and the pitcher's mound on a drawing of a baseball field. SF, or line SF, and line TH are parallel lines. If you look from S to F and T to H, those lines are parallel. ST, or line ST, and line FH are parallel lines. So S to T would go from this point to here, and FH from here to here. So you can see those lines go in the same direction and they are the same distance apart. The pitcher's mound is one place where perpendicular lines cross. At what point do perpendicular lines cross at the pitcher's mound? So the pitcher's mound is this point in the center here, labeled point P. It says they cross at point P, where line TF crosses line SH. So TF would go straight across through the middle this direction, side to side. And line SH goes from point S down to point H. So that's this line going down the middle. And those cross right perfectly in the middle at a 90-degree or a right angle. For problems 1 and 2, use the shape below. Number 1, how many pairs of parallel lines does the square appear to have? Pairs means two lines. So if you look at this square, the lines on each side, those are the same distance apart and they never will cross. So that is one pair. And then the line going across the bottom and across the top, those two lines are also parallel because they're the same distance apart and they will never cross. So there are two pair of parallel lines. Number 2, put X's on the square where each pair of perpendicular line segments meet. So again, perpendicular are where they make that cross, that perfect 90-degree right angle. If you look, I kind of already extended the lines or the line segments for each one. So you can see this side and the top, they cross perfectly at this corner. So you would place an X there where those cross at that 90-degree angle. Then the bottom line segment and this side, they cross at this point here. So I would put an X, that's at a 90-degree angle. The top line segment and the opposite side, those two cross at this point. So I put an X there. And the bottom line and this side, they cross at this point. So I would put an X there. And those are perpendicular because you can see it makes that L shape or that little right angle where they meet. Number 3. Look at the drawing of a window below. Circle 3 parallel line segments in the drawing. So this has to be 3 lines that do not ever cross. I'm going to extend these lines to show you that top line and this side line, they do cross. They touch right here. Same for the other side. Those cross and they touch right here. So those would not be parallel lines. Remember, parallel never cross. If you're looking for the parallel lines, you've got that top line or line segment, the middle, and then the bottom. Those 3 lines, they are going the same direction and they are the same distance apart, and you can see they never would cross. They're going to be parallel. So those are the 3 parallel line segments to circle. Number 4. Look at the line segments in the letters on the tiles to the right. Fill in the table with each letter you identify parallel lines. The first one is done for you. So the letter L has no parallel lines, and that's why it's written here. Those 2 lines of the letter L, if you extend them, they do cross. Remember, parallel lines are never going to cross. Look at the letter E. The top line of E and the middle line of E, those are parallel lines because they never will cross. The bottom line of E is also a parallel line. So this would fall under this category, more than one pair of parallel lines, because you've got the top and the middle line of E, that's 1 pair. The middle and the bottom line of E, that's 2 pairs. So E has more than 1 pair of parallel lines. Now look at F. The top line of F and the bottom line of F create parallel lines. They never will cross. So that's 1 set of parallel lines. This 3rd line in F is not parallel to the other ones because it crosses them. So you have 1 pair of parallel lines for the letter F. The letter H. The 2 sides of the letter H, if they continue on, those 2 lines will never cross. That makes them parallel. The 3rd line of H does cross over, so that would not be a parallel line. There's only 1 set of parallel lines, or 1 pair, and it's the 2 sides for the letter H. For the letter I, the top line and the bottom line, if you extend those, you can see they would never cross, and that makes them parallel. But that 3rd line, it does cross over, which means there's only 1 set of lines, or 1 pair of lines that are parallel. The letter L was already done for us. It has no parallel lines. And now the letter T. The 2 lines that make up the letter T, those 2 lines cross each other. And if they cross, they are not parallel. So the letter T has no parallel lines. Number 5. Look at the line segments in the letters on the tiles again. Fill in the table to identify perpendicular lines. So now we're looking for how many pair of lines cross one another at a perfect 90-degree or right angle. For the letter E, you've got the side line and the top line. Those 2 cross, that makes 1 pair of perpendicular. The side line and the middle line, those cross, those are perpendicular. The side line and the bottom line, those also cross, and those are perpendicular as well. So there are 3 pairs of perpendicular lines in this letter. For the letter F, if you continue the side line, the line that goes across the side and across the top, those cross and make 1 pair of perpendicular lines. And then the bottom line also crosses the side, and that makes 2 pair of perpendicular lines. So the letter F has 2 pairs of perpendicular lines. For the letter H, the side line and the line that goes through the middle creates 1 pair of perpendicular lines. The opposite side and the line that goes through the middle makes a 2nd pair of perpendicular lines. So H has 2 pairs. Or 2 pairs. For the letter I, if you extend that middle line and you draw across the top, extend the top line, those cross at a 90-degree angle, and that creates 1 pair of perpendicular lines. And then if you extend that bottom line, it crosses over that middle line to also make a perpendicular pair. So that's 2. Now for the letter L, if you extend the bottom and then the one that goes up and down, those two lines cross over at a perfect 90-degree angle, and that creates one pair of perpendicular lines. So L will go under one pair. And then for the letter T, extend those two lines, and you can see there's one pair of perpendicular lines there, one pair that cross over. So the letter T would go with the letter L. Number 6, choose true or false to tell if each statement correctly describes the streets shown on the map. So we've got Main Street, High Street would be this line, First Street goes this direction, Third Street is here, and Second Street. A says First and Third Street are perpendicular. So perpendicular, remember, that means they cross at that perfect 90-degree angle. So we've got First Street running here, Third Street here. Do those lines cross one another? No. So that would be false. B, Main and High Street are parallel. Main and High. Remember, parallel lines are always the same distance apart and they will never cross. Main and High are the same distance apart, and if they continue on in both directions, they will not cross. So that is true. C, Second Street is perpendicular to Main Street. That means they should cross at that perfect 90-degree angle. Second Street runs this direction, and Main Street runs in this direction. So I'm going to extend Second Street to show it does cross. That is true. Second Street eventually would cross Main Street. However, to be perpendicular, it has to be a 90-degree angle or a right angle. So it has to look like the letter L or a perfect corner. This angle is not a perfect corner. This angle is smaller than a right angle. So we would call that an acute angle. And because it's not perpendicular and because it's not a perfect right angle, that means it's not perpendicular. So C is false. And D, First Street is perpendicular to High Street. So First Street runs this direction, High Street runs this direction. They do cross, and you can see it's at a 90-degree angle. That makes it perpendicular, and that is true.